This is chapter 7, Still Life. Dodo called and interrupted us. Spess, the day Howard takes me seriously, I'm in real trouble. They had to stop talking then because Mr. Kravitz had lumbered to the front of the room. Today we're going to draw still lifes, said the teacher. He directed their attention to a small round table that held 2 oranges, a banana, and a tall blue water jug. After Mr. Kravitz had spent some time telling them what a wonderful job he'd done in arranging the items, he passed out paper and said, "Start drawing." Jeremy began to sketch, slowly at first, then with growing enthusiasm. Soon he was so involved with what he was doing that he didn't notice that Mr. Kravitz was standing behind him. He jumped when the gruff voice said, "Perhaps you did not understand me, Mr. Thatcher. We're drawing still life today. In particular, that still life." He gestured to the table in the middle of the room, then to Jeremy's picture. The banana and the oranges looked fine, but instead of the blue jug, Jeremy had drawn a small dragon trying to eat one of the oranges, which was bigger than its head. Here's Jeremy. I think that's Spess, his friend, and you can kind of see the teacher, his arm touching Jeremy's artwork. That doesn't have a blue jug. "That is not a still life," said Mr. Kravitz, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "In fact, it's not based on any kind of life at all. I did not ask you to use your imagination today. I asked you to use your eyes to draw what you see." Jeremy wanted to say, "That is what I see. It's what's inside me." But before he could find the courage to speak, Mr. Kravitz slapped his hand against the desk. "I want fruit," he roared. "Fruit, Thatcher, not imaginary animals." "But it's not." Jeremy stopped himself. What was he going to do? Tell Mr. Kravitz the dragon was real? Even if he did tell about Tiamat, no one else could see her. "Try again, Thatcher," said Mr. Kravitz, handing Jeremy a fresh sheet of paper. Jeremy sighed. When he wanted more paper, he couldn't get it. When he was happy with what he was doing, Mr. Kravitz took it away and told him to start over. He considered adding Mr. Kravitz to the next drawing. After all, the man was shaped like a pear. He decided the joke would be more trouble than it was worth. Reluctantly, he picked up his pencil and started to sketch. He was blocking in the banana when a jolt of pain surged through his head. He cried out in shock, his hand jerking out of control and knocking the box of charcoal sticks across the table. "Hey," cried Specimen, as a brittle sticks of charcoal went cascading over his drawing. "Watch it." Jeremy barely heard him. Something was wrong with Tiamat. Glancing up, he saw Mr. Kravitz heading in their direction. He looked angrier than ever. "No time to worry about that. Gonna throw up," he yelled, jumping to his feet and heading for the door. That would slow Mr. Kravitz down. Everyone knew he hated it when kids puked. Dashing into the hall, Jeremy raced for the back door of the school and started across the playground. Realizing he was more apt to be spotted that way, he changed direction, taking the longer route down Cherry Street toward the park. By the time he reached the park entrance, his lungs felt like there were little men inside scrubbing them with sandpaper. But he kept running. Gasping for breath, he stumbled up the front steps of the house, fumbled with the key, threw open the door, and shot into the living room. To his surprise, everything was quiet. He expected chaos, an ongoing uproar, but the house was silent. Even the bounding enthusiasm of grief was missing. Stopping to catch his breath, Jeremy suddenly realized that the sense of panic and danger filling his head had faded. He'd been so wound up in trying to get home, he'd not noticed the ebbing of the crisis until now. The searing pain created by his desperate sprint had blocked any sendings he might have received from Tiamat. He started up the stairs, but a soft whine stopped him. Turning, he saw that it came from Grief, who was cowering under the dining room table. What's been going on here, he wondered. Where's Tiamat? The instant he thought the question, he sensed the dragon's location. It wasn't anything as simple as a message saying, "I'm here." He just knew where she was. Bounding up the stairs, he stopped at his door, appalled by the mess that greeted him. His room, never very neat at best, looked like a hurricane had just passed through. The general clutter that usually hid the floor appeared to have been whipped up with a great giant egg beater. The covers had been pulled off his bed. Anything that could be tipped over had been tipped over. An indignant squawk drew his attention to Tiamat. She was perched on top of the bookshelf, glaring down at him angrily. However, the feeling he was picking up from her was not anger with him, but anger at the world in general. "What is it?" he asked gently, picking his way across the debris-covered floor. "What's wrong, T?" Tiamat opened her mouth and hissed. Jeremy drew back for a second, then stepped forward again. The dragonlet looked different than she had this morning, lighter, somehow, as if someone had polished her scales. Suddenly he spotted something that looked like a piece of red cellophane lying on the bookshelf. "Your skin," he said breathlessly. "T, you shed your skin." Holding out his hand, he invited Tiamat to climb onto his shoulder. She was partway up his arm when Jeremy heard a noise that startled him. He spun around so fast that Tiamat had to grab his sleeve with her teeth to keep from falling off. She sent him a flash of angry purple to let him know she didn't appreciate that kind of sudden movement. Jeremy ignored the sending. He was too upset by what he saw. I wonder what he saw. That's the end of the chapter. Chapter 8 is The Dragon Who Came to Dinner. Whoa-oh. Ruh-oh.